Okay, so now we want to talk a little bit more about how muscles pull on bones and cause those bones to move. And so what we're going to talk about now is this concept of levers. There's three different types. The three types are called first, second, and third class levers. So these are the different types. And so first what I need to do is I need to define three different terms. I'm going to define them first, and then I'm going to show you how they apply in these three different types of levers, and so I hope that that will solidify them and help them to make sense. So the first thing we have is we have a load, okay, and this is the weight that is being lifted. Okay, and generally a lot of times this load, that weight is being pulled down with gravity. Okay, and so just remember that. Now the applied force is the direction that the muscle is pulling or contracting. Okay, and so that's what the applied force is. Now the pivot is the fulcrum is going to be what I like to call the pivot point, and it remains stationary. Okay. And so this is going to be important as well. So in each of these types of levers, we want to look for the load, which is the weight being lifted, the applied force, what direction is that muscle pulling, and fulcrum, which is the part that doesn't move, that's kind of the pivot point that the applied force is able to use to lift that load. Okay. All right. And so let's look at these different types of levers. So first I'd like to look at this first class lever here, okay, and we're going to focus on this. Now I'm going to turn to big screen just for a minute on me so I can demonstrate what's going on in this picture. Okay, so first off, what I'd like for you to do this along with me. So find your mastoid process behind your ear, okay? So if we're looking at this mastoid process right back here, okay? Now there's muscles that are going to attach to it, all right? And they're going to be going behind this part of your neck, okay? So what's happening is that these muscles right back here are contracting. Okay, and as they contract, they pull the head back. Okay, so let's think about it. What is the weight that's lifted when you do this? Well, it's this whole skull area, okay? And so that is the load, and as you move it back, it's being lifted. Okay, so the load is up here. Here's the pivot point. If you move your head back, notice that this point doesn't move very much relative to all the rest of this. And where's the muscle? The muscle is back here, and that's what's contracting. So this is the applied force. Okay, so just to show that in an image here, right here, fulcrum, mastoid process. Okay, the load is this whole part of the skull that's being pulled up. And the applied force is these muscles here on the back part of the skull that are pulling up. So what I want you to notice is the placement of load, fulcrum, and applied force. And this is a cartoon representation, maybe showing you something that you're more familiar with, that's easier to relate this movement to. Notice here with the first class lever that the fulcrum is in the middle. Notice too that the weight is being pulled down, and the muscle contraction is going in the same direction on the other side of that fulcrum, but the load is being pulled down, the applied force also pulls down in that same direction just on the other side. So what I'd like for you to do here, drawing of the lever, draw it in whatever way makes sense to you, but make sure that you put that the fulcrum is in the middle. So it's between the load and the applied force, okay? You might also note in your drawing that load and applied force are that weight or that contraction. So the applied force, either weight or contraction, are in the same direction. So that's a couple of things to notice as you're making your drawing. Okay, put a description in your own words and also give that example that we talked about so you have that example in your head. Okay, so a second class lever. So this is more like a wheelbarrow, and let me again go here. Right on this image, we're going to be talking about this right here, second class levers. And so again, I'm going to switch to the big screen and demonstrate what's going on right here. Okay, so what we're looking at with this movement is basically we're looking at standing up on your tippy toes. Okay, so the part that stays stationary is clearly going to be the balls of my feet and my toes. So that is going to be the fulcrum. Okay, now if we look right along the bones going up is going to be the load. It's the entire weight of my body. It's going right down those bones, and that's being pulled up. So what is the muscle that pulls me up onto the balls of my feet like this? Well, it's this calf muscle right back here. So if we think about it, in this scenario, fulcrum is here, load is in the middle, and applied force is in the back. Now notice gravity is going to be pulling my weight down. But the contraction this time is going the opposite of the load. So as this muscle contracts, muscle's contracting up, but the weight is constantly being pulled down by gravity. Okay, and so that's what we're actually seeing right here. Again, fulcrum is the ball of the feet and the toes. The load is the weight of the body that goes along these bones. And then here on the other side of the load is the applied force. This muscle is contracting up. And so again, notice load's being pulled down. Applied force is moving up in the opposite direction. Okay, so do the same thing over here. Make sure for second class levers that you note that the load is the one in the middle. That load and applied force are in opposite directions for a second class lever. Describe it in your own words. Describe the example in your own words. Finally, third class levers, and this would be an example. And so if we go over here, what we're talking about here is this third class lever. Okay, and so again, I'm going to switch to the big screen to show you what I'm talking about to demonstrate this movement. Okay, so one example of this, okay, is going to be this muscle that is going to flex the elbow. Okay, now as we're doing this, and you can do this yourself, if you flex your elbow, the part that stays still, okay, is this back part of the elbow, right? So right there, not moving. Okay, so what is the weight that's being lifted? What is the load? Well, it's all of this. It's my hand all the way up to my forearm. Okay, and so that is the load right out in this region out here. Okay, it is being pulled down by gravity. So load, fulcrum. So where is the applied force? It turns out if this is our fulcrum, this muscle, it's attached up here but it's also attached right here. So if we look at that, where that attachment point is, okay, fulcrum is behind it. Here's the applied force, and then the load is out here. So in this instance, applied force is in the middle. So if we look at this image here, we're going to see fulcrum. Notice applied force, it's attached in front of the fulcrum, and then the load is all of this up here. And again, notice the load is pulling the weight down, and here also applied force is going in the opposite direction. So you have your notes packets and fill in what your descriptions of third class levers are as well.